Maritza Morris is in the faculty spotlight. Maritza, how are you? Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Well, what do you want to know? There's so much
anything you want to tell us.
Well,
tell about you personally. You know, who are you? Where'd you come from, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so I am actually born and raised right here in Laredo. I am a product of the United Independent School District. Graduated a long time ago. We'll leave it at that. And I went to school here. So I graduated here from TAMI-U. Got my bachelor's and master's in history and political thought, and went right into teaching.
Where'd you go to high school?
United.
Okay. Do you remember your elementary and middle?
I do.
Okay.
Finley Elementary and George Washington Middle. I was the first. Oh man, now everybody will know how old I am. But I was the first.
I'm way older than you, so don't worry about it. So you're good. You're the first class of George Washington Middle.
Yes. So it's when they split up the Colonel Santos back in the day when there was a middle school, and we went that way.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard political thought. I know
really?
What is that?
So it's a combined degree with history and government political science, essentially. That would be kind of like your minor. So it has like an emphasis on history, but then the minor in political science.
So you think about politics every once in a while?
All the time, everything. It's everywhere. I tried not to, but it can get a little boring.
Yeah. So you're a Laredo product then.
Yeah.
That's nice. How does that feel? Does that mean anything to you?
It does. I have actually, lived in other places, both in and out of the state. And I always say, Laredo's a really special place. I've always imagined that I would come back here and work here and raise my family here. And I've been very lucky to have done that because it is a really special place. We kind of live in a little bubble.
Yeah, we do.
And very protected, very safe. Great community, great people.
And that's amazing because we hear a lot about the brain drain, our students leave Laredo and they don't come back. So that's admirable that you knew you wanted to come back to Laredo.
It's also why it's important to me to stay here and to sort of be an example for, future professors or future educators, future professionals, that they see that, hey, she's from here, she's doing it. And it can be done. Yeah.
When did you know you wanted to teach?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so probably I want to say that it was my freshman year in college. I had no affinity for history, but something my professor said just kind of sparked that curiosity. I was like, "Whoa, that is awesome!" And I want to do what she's doing. And
so prior to that, what were you going to do?
Well, I wanted to have a child daycare. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be with little kids. I used to be a Sunday school teacher, so I had I love little children and stuff like that. So I just always gravitated towards education. But once I got into the program, I was like, no, I definitely want to be dealing with adults, young adults.
You do teach history, by the way.
I do.
How long have you been at Laredo College?
I have been here since 2015. So we're going on 10 years.
That's a decade worth of teaching folks
a lot
here
of
at Laredo
students,
College.
a lot of students.
Have you always taught at the college level? Was this your first teaching
I always taught at the college level. I graduated in 2014 in May, and literally August I was thrown into a full load, 5 classes back to back. I was doing dual enrollment at the time at Alexander High School. And I loved it, in part because I know the material so well. I was so comfortable talking about it. The work is the grading, right? That's and the structuring of courses and stuff like that. But I always kind of joke around that I get paid to do something that I love. Yeah.
That's a pretty big pivot, from wanting to go into childcare and have a daycare. What was it? I mean, then a history professor. What was it that this professor said that made you want to do that?
Oh man, she just shifted my entire perspective on history. I used to think that it was. I like documentaries and things like that. I remember watching that stuff with my dad. I was always interested, but in high school, I was like, oh no, this is so boring. No way I could have thought of myself as being a history teacher or anything like that. But the way that she just introduced it to us and said that, she made a comment, something about how it's like gossip right? Like drama, like gossip magazines, but like it happened
Actually
like a long
happened.
time ago. And that really got me thinking like, whoa, okay, this is real. This is real people, which again, there's that distance of time and sometimes it's hard for us to relate to something that happened 100 or 200 years ago. So
But
yeah, that shifted my perspective.
that's a real testament to teaching, though, that one individual, one professor was
Yeah.
able to shift your
Well, one
whole life,
plus
really.
two. I've
Yeah.
had some
Yeah.
really good mentors, and I always joke around that I'm like a product of the three of them. The way that they deliver the content, the passion, even the verbiage. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like I feel like well, I did. I wanted to mirror them. I wanted to emulate them. They were great examples for me when I was at TAMU.
What's your thought process as you walk into the classroom?
Okay, so it has actually changed a lot since my first years because I used to be very, very anxious. I used to get I was very, very nervous. I am naturally nervous talking in public, speaking in public. And I would worry a lot that, my God, somebody's going to ask me something I don't know. So I would prepare and over prepare and read and read and read every day before class, just anticipation until one of my mentors told me, no, 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 you got this all wrong. You have to remember you're the smartest person in the room. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like I got all this experience and education and it's like, and if you don't know it, just say, oh, that's a great question. Let's find out. And I was like, wow, okay. So, and now it's like, all right, now we got to figure out how much can we cover in the short amount of time that we have because now it's 8-week semesters, right? And now it's hybrid classes. So instead of, meeting with them, for 16 weeks, twice a day, which would equal 4 times a week in an 8-week model, you have to cut a lot of stuff out, cut the fat, if you
Yeah.
will. And that was really tough. It's been really difficult because I know some of my colleagues and we love all the details. And it's like, we don't want to leave. Everything is important.
Yeah.
Everything is important because everything is related. So it's been a challenge, but it's definitely helped us to focus more on the skills that these kids are going to develop leaving the classroom.
Do you feel like that 8-week course matches today's attention span almost
Perhaps,
in a way, you know?
perhaps, because we do still have, the 4-day-a-week classes, and some students, they prefer that, and others would rather just come twice a week, and then on the other 2 days, do another class. And I think it's serving its purpose of getting them graduating, finished earlier. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing, but
A student gets their schedule and sees Maritza Morris. What do you want them to think, or what do you want them to know?
I want them, first of all, I want them to sign up for my class already knowing, I get a lot of those students that are like, oh, my friend took your class and they told me you were great. So it's a lot of like word of mouth, but I want them to know, even if they've never heard of me before, that, their success is my number one priority. So they're in the classroom with me. And I know that they're probably not history majors, like 90% of our students are not history majors, but, they're there anyways. They have to take this class. And I tell them every first day, yesterday, was our first day. And I tell them, you're here, what's your goal? What do you want out of this class? You're here anyways. Do you want an A? Do you just want to pass? Do you want to challenge yourself? And that helps us all. Number one, it helps me know what their goal is. I'm sorry, put the mic. But it also gets them on the right mindset, so that they know exactly what it is that they have to do. But I'm a facilitator for their success. I don't want them to be scared of the content just because they're not familiar or because it could be too much. I think everybody that walks into my classroom knows that I am fully supportive of their goals, and again, I want to be a facilitator for their success. Yeah.
What do you see in an LC student? If you had to describe the typical LC student, how would you describe them?
I think they're hungry. I think they are, for the most part, everybody that I've met in my classroom has goals. And they know what they have to do to achieve them. And this is just a part of that process. I think as professors here, we have a great deal of responsibility to these students that, number one, they're from here or they live here. And they could go anywhere else.
Yeah.
But they're here, and it's our responsibility to ensure that they have that success, and if they're struggling, to make ourselves available to help them. So they're hungry. They have their goal. They have goals in mind. They are friendly kids, and I see them kind of like my own children at this point,
Yeah.
I mean, when I started teaching 10 years ago, maybe not so much, but now it's like, wow, like these kids, I could be their mom. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of, familiarity there. There's a lot of, like cariño,
Yeah.
for them, because I see myself in them. And I hope that they see that in me too.
Any success stories over the 10 years that stand out?
So many.
Yeah.
I love running into people. The other day I ran into somebody like, "Are you Miss Morris with Javier Alexander?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so true. I remember." But I've had moms, come and tell me like, "Oh my gosh, my son was in your class, and he's in law school now, or he's in medical school," and it's always really nice to hear that. Yeah.
Really good. The student in 2015 versus the student today, what's the difference?
I think the
In
difference.
any way you want, you pick.
There's so many. I think personally for me, it's like, well, in 2015 they would get my jokes,
Okay.
They would get my jokes, and they could relate to it on some level. And now I think if I try to do that joke stuff, it would be too cringe. I see that as like, oh, that didn't hit quite as it used to.
Do you try to learn their lingo today?
Oh, I do, and I will deliver it, the way that scholarly way. And then if I see some, people going, huh? I'll be like, okay, well. It's like with your BFF, and, and Germany's BFF with Austria, and they're like, oh, I get it. All right. So yeah, I try to bring some of that into the classroom, but it's not fully operational.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But overall, the student over the last 10 years has remained the same, or do you think it's changed? The student has changed, or students have changed?
I think it has changed a little bit in terms, because the economy is one thing. There's a lot of family responsibilities. So a lot of our students, they're here and they're all business. They want to get the grade, they want to move on to the next thing. I see a lot of that. There's a little bit more drive, and perhaps I would say the need is different.
Yeah.
Whereas, 10 years ago, I would see them, like as kids coming out of high school, and they're here because they have to be, or, it was a little bit different 10 years ago.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And more responsibility maybe, and they're all
so.
business because they've got a life outside of here. They've got to go work, maybe even support their families, or whatever the case may be.
That is actually something that I've noticed, that I've heard a lot from my students, is that, they're working sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, they're struggling, they're helping their parents to pay the bills or whatever. So there's a lot of family responsibility there that, again, like I said, I understand that, and I try to be very, very flexible with them. But yeah, it's kind of hard to hear that, that they want to do all of these things and they don't have the time, or they're really struggling to get sleep, that can be tough.
Things you like to do other than teach?
Things I like to do well, currently I don't have a lot of time to do anything, because I'm getting my doctorate, and I'm 1 year out. So I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and that's taken up, the last 2 years of my life. But
when you have a little bit of extra time, right? So what do you like to do?
Time fishing,
Really?
Yeah, going fishing with the kids. Lots of like DIY stuff around the house. We were working on the house since like July, and finally it's done. So lots of things around the home, family centered. I've got a kid that's in the Army, and so it's like kind of like waiting on him to call us on Sundays has been another thing. But personally, I do Pilates every day. It helps me stay kind of sane. Exercise, it is something that I really look forward to doing, and it helps me sort of stay centered and balanced.
I was going to ask what you would have done if you wouldn't have been a teacher, but you said that at the beginning you probably would have been a daycare owner.
I
or-
wanted to,
yeah.
and well, there's a lot of reasons why I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I started working at a daycare just, you know, to get the experience, and that's when I realized this isn't going to be for me. This is
No, thank you.
too tough.
Yeah.
This is really hard work,
Yeah.
actually. But I think in another life, if I would have done something different, definitely in the medical field, I feel like I have. The how do you say, like, I don't get flustered, I don't get, you know, I work
Yeah,
well, really good under pressure. I'm not scared of like blood or anything like that. It fascinates me, either that or some kind of lawyer.
That's very interesting, Maritza. Final questions. Do you have a favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh my gosh, there's so many. Like recent?
Whichever. Something that stands out.
Literally anything with Robert De Niro.
Okay.
Heat is good. Godfather. Can't
Can't
go wrong with the classics.
Godfather. No, you
Can't
cannot.
go wrong with the
All right.
classics, yeah.
Favorite artist? Music?
Pink Floyd.
Oh, very interesting. All right. Maritza, thank you very much for your time. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yes, it was nice.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.